Mercy. It's a word we hear all the time, right? But what does it actually mean? Well, the teaching we're diving into today presents it as something way deeper than just being nice. It's really framed as this powerful, divine force that can bridge what seems like an impossible gap. Okay, so here's how we're going to tackle this. First, we'll get a really clear definition of what divine mercy is. Then, we're going to dig into this pretty stark contrast the teaching sets up between the nature of God and the nature of humanity. From there, we'll walk through a powerful case study on the path to getting that mercy, and we'll wrap it all up by looking at what it really means to have a transformed heart. So let's kick things off with the absolute basics. What is mercy in this theological sense? Because, it's not just one simple thing. The teaching actually breaks it down into two totally different levels. One we're pretty familiar with, and another that's, well, it's a lot more radical. And right here, you see that huge split. On the human level, mercy is something we get. It's having compassion for someone who's hurting. But divine mercy, that's on a whole other playing field. It's about getting kindness you absolutely don't deserve. And maybe even more shocking, being spared a punishment you totally do deserve. And this isn't presented as just some minor personality quirk. The teaching really hammers home this idea of God being rich in mercy. It suggests it's this overflowing, fundamental part of his very nature. It's not just something he does, it's who he is. All right, so if God is overflowing with all this mercy, you have to ask the question, why is it so desperately needed? Well, the teaching answers that by setting up this incredibly dramatic contrast between two completely opposite natures. And wow, this slide really gets to the heart of the whole problem, doesn't it? On one side, you've got the nature of God, described as compassionate and full of love. But on the other side, you have the nature of man, described in some seriously harsh terms, wicked, deceitful. That massive gap between the two, that's the chasm that mercy is supposedly there to bridge. To lay out God's character, the source points straight to Scripture. It highlights these key attributes: compassion, mercy, patience, and a love that's described as, well, unfailing. And then, for the other side of that coin, the source pulls out this incredibly blunt verse. The argument here is that the human heart isn't just a little bit flawed. In its natural state, it's deceitful and desperately wicked. And this is the core reason why, in this theological framework, divine mercy isn't just a nice-to-have, it's an absolute necessity. So you've got this massive, gaping chasm between the two natures. How in the world do you bridge it? The source doesn't just leave it as some abstract problem. It gives us the very raw, very personal story of King David as a kind of case study in how you actually go about getting mercy. And you've got to understand the context here, because it is everything. This isn't David after some small slip-up. No, according to the text, he's hit absolute rock bottom. We're talking adultery and then arranging a murder to cover it all up. His desperate plea for mercy in Psalm 51 is held up as the ultimate roadmap. Now, pay close attention to his opening line. He doesn't list his good deeds or try to make any excuses. He appeals only to God's character, his loving kindness. He's basically saying, look, I've got nothing. I have no right to ask for this. My only hope here is based on who you are. The next step is just radical ownership. There's no playing it down, no blaming anyone else. He completely acknowledges what he's done, and he sees it as this deep stain that he can't get out on his own. He's asking for a deep throat cleaning. And here's where his request goes even deeper. This isn't just about wiping the slate clean. He's asking for a fundamental internal rewrite, a brand new heart, a new spirit. He's not just asking for a pardon. He's terrified of being cut off from God, and he knows he needs to be changed from the inside out. So this all leads to a massive question, doesn't it? After everything he's done, adultery, murder, what kind of physical sacrifice or grand gesture could possibly make things right? Well, it turns out David himself gives us the answer. So what exactly is the price of mercy? The teaching points to one very specific payment that's required to get this gift. And I'll bet it's not what you're thinking. And there it is, the big reveal. According to this teaching, mercy isn't something you can earn with actions or religious rituals. You can't buy it. The only price is an internal posture, a broken spirit, a heart that is genuinely humbled and sorry for what it's done. So really, the whole process gets boiled down to these internal steps. It all starts with just acknowledging what you did wrong. Then it moves to true remorse, not just being sorry you got caught, and it ends with the humility of realizing you need help that you just can't give yourself. And ultimately, the source explains that pride is the great enemy of mercy. God isn't looking for a bribe or a payment. He's just waiting for that one single condition that opens the floodgates for his mercy to flow, a broken spirit that has finally stopped fighting and is ready to receive help. And this is where the whole concept comes full circle. The teaching basically concludes that this entire process is transformative. Once a person has genuinely received this divine mercy, they're changed by it. And then they're equipped, and even expected, to become a source of that same mercy for other people. So we'll end with this final, really challenging idea from the teaching. Mercy isn't just a one-and-done transaction, it's a cycle. And it leaves us all with a pretty provocative question to chew on. Can you truly give mercy to others if you've never really understood what it feels like to desperately need it and then receive it yourself?